So my name is Martin Curley, and I'm going to be talking about how I use maps and how I use census forms and stuff to be tracing the past. So I am glad that RTE is covering this documentary here today. Right on. Hi guys, come on, take a seat here. So this is kind of like what you signed up for. So census returns, maps, folklore, just research and record, and the visual images. So my first visual image was the introduction one. Does anyone know what's in the picture? Obviously, if you're going to say grass, I'll give you 100% because we're doing biodiversity. But it's kind of the two things that are jutting up that I'll be kind of a little bit more. Do you know what they are? Stones. But written on them are own scripts. So these are in a place called Balnagar in County Roscommon, and very unique because there's two of them right beside each other. And the reason I'm picking this particular area is I've worked in that school. So I'm kind of showing you what I kind of do with one particular area. So I kind of introduce the visual and ask them, what do they notice? Where is that? Now, thankfully, most students would know something around their area. This is in a little bit of a track off the way, so some would know, some may not know. And the idea then is to explore those areas as well once we have it. So, introduce myself. My name is Martin Curley. As you probably can hear from my accent, I'm not from Roscommon. I'm not from around here either. I'm from County Galway. But I lived in New York, I lived in Liverpool, I lived in Belfast. So I'm kind of like a mix-up of everything there. And my interest is in family history and also local history. So when I do projects, I'm looking at two aspects of that particular project. I'm looking at the place the kids live in and the people that shape that place, including their selves, their parents, their grandparents, and whoever else. So this is that village of Balnagar. As you can see, it's rural. It's a little bit of a hamlet going on there. That's the N5, which is the main Dublin to kind of Cavan Road, and it kind of like goes further in. So what I do with the maps, I use the Ordnance Survey maps especially. This is the digital globe, the satellite feature of that. And I get the kids to look, find where the school is first. This is the village here, and then ask them to look at the field system around the place. To notice what are the odd-shaped fields. To notice where the fields are in straight rows, but it's kind of like as if you took a sheet of paper and you stripped it into a few. Guys, come on up here. Just kind of that and that. And seat over here as well if you want. So to see visually where they are, and then to ask them, why are the fields that way? What has happened? And one of the questions is a little bit of a tempting question and a little bit of a leading question that I ask. How old are fields? So I do get 5 billion, and I get 5 million, and I get 5,000, and I get 500, and thankfully, every now and then, I get 5. And the idea, what is a field? A field is a plot of ground that's been sectioned off somehow. So I said, it could be 5 minutes old. Farmer across there could have put a fence up this morning, and therefore he's made a field. But the land underneath is what we can explore as well. So to have a look there, where those two own stones are, is just around the corner. It's a small little boreen that's going up to a farmhouse, and there's a massive rainfort there. So again, to make all the students aware of that, because we can do it by maps and to make it visual. And by making it visual, I'm asking them also to think about the stories that are being passed on by their parents, by their grandparents, and hopefully their great-grandparents. We have a few sometimes in schools where they have great-grandparents still alive, and to just ask those stories. I ask them, who comes into school on a pony and trap in the morning? Believe it or not, nobody answers yes. They do, but then you kind of know, maybe not. But they come into school, bus or car. And sadly, that's the way things are, because unfortunately, you can't trust your kids on the roads today with the way drivers are. Some do come walking to school, some with bicycles from time to time. But just that whole visual, this is a market. This happens to be in Ballinasloe, but the whole idea of market. Most small towns did have a market. And I'm going to be asking them to ask those stories from parents and to grandparents. So you're inviting them to make the project a family-style project. And then to just get the stories that were passed down. Who made the Rika turf there at the back? This man's grandfather made the same one. This kid's grandchildren possibly have oil central heating. So there's a big change in ways. And to find out how those things affect them and shape the community. Luckily enough, I work in schools in Roscommon, and there's a wonderful website that has civil parish records with some wonderful maps. The first 3 kids I asked in the school were from Ratholic, Rathneely, and there was another rat somewhere else. It might be just outside the map. And immediately I said to them, have you got a ring fort in your... And they're like, yeah. And it doesn't take too much to kind of get that idea. Here's rat, there's a ring fort there. And that names, and again to get them then to say, well, what does, Rahili was the other one, what does your townland mean? Why is it? And from the Irish, there is a reason for that. There's a reason that this probably peak might be just from park or peak. So to find out what's the origin, and some local people would have that, there'd be local histories as well that would have a little bit about that. As I said, I'm using maps, using information about the people who were there in the past, the people that shaped those times. So the maps here come from the Down survey. Finding out here, Major Owen Connor. And luckily enough, Clonellis House is down the road from Ballinagar, which is down about here, and that's the home of the Connor family. And guess what's in there? There's a picture of Major Owen Connor, because that family has retained most of their possessions. They've left, they've kind of got it lost from time to time, but eventually got it back. So there's a great idea of history within that school, within that area, because the principal is also from that area. And that's the nice connection with that.
Good.
And we talk...
Sorry,
sure.
back. Just when they were going, there was profitable land and forfeited land.
Yes.
And it's the same amount, so was it land that was profitable that got forfeited going back into the state, or?
No, this was taken off. This William Malloy unfortunately took the wrong side.
Okay. Right.
And our good friend here, Ollie C, you know, he's down with the kids, Ollie C. So Ollie and his roundheads.
Just it was the same area, so.
Oh yeah, no, this would be, what would happen there in some places, that profitable land and what's forfeited would be analogous, that would be the same. Sometimes they would take a little bit off, depends on who the person was. And obviously that land then was given. These look like they're native Gaelic Irish, so they're going to be losing out a lot. The Connors thankfully kept on a good bit of it. But that again, I go into a little bit of explanation of those times with the Cromwellian plantation, because one of the nice things about the Cromwellian plantation, shall I say the only nice thing about the Cromwellian plantation, is the fact that we have a map to go with it. And because they want to know who was there and want to know that. So here's Kilcorkery, which is the civil parish that you just saw a map of. And here's the church. And here is Brackloon, just over the road. And we look around, we see what are the other names around. Here's Balnagar. So these are names that the kids can identify that have been there for several centuries. And then we go pretty modern compared to the 1600s. 1838 approximately is pretty modern. And try and say, what's there still? So there's a Roman Catholic chapel, and I explain a small bit about the difference between a chapel and a church. Everybody here knows. Is that true? So chapel is...
It's owned by a priory or lords.
A chapel is a place of worship which non-Church of Ireland people would go to, because there's only one church in Ireland, the established church up until 1871. So they have churches. So Catholics, Methodists, Presbyterians have chapels. So you don't find a Roman Catholic church in Ireland in maps up until after the disestablishment in 1871. But it's a small little thing because it kind of tells you the history of what's going on there. And just up here is Balnagar Castle, which was the home of the person who started off the Catholic Association, Charles O'Connor, in the middle of the penal laws. So this is a nice area to kind of study. But all areas have their own attractions. There's a river there. Beside a river is going to be a mill in places. So we're going to kind of discover, and there it is. And the school, this is just an overlay of those two maps. So just get the students to look at one place, and I get them to see what that place, and then I ask them to go home. Not literally, but obviously to go onto the map and find their own place and to discover what's around. Sometimes you'll discover that a field system is still the same from the 1830s, which means that it was probably there 90 years before when the land started to get divided up. And then to find the spots around. So here's the 1830 map. Here's Balnagar Castle, still lived in. We have a few other inhabitants there, non-human, but still lived in, obviously today, but sadly neglected. This should be, in a way, a shrine to Charles O'Connor, because he was such an important person, preceded Daniel O'Connell, and pretty much inspired a huge movement in Ireland. We've also his house up the road, which is in a better shape. Somebody else has built a house there. The cow is going to move along soon. But we have all of those things. And again, it's getting the students to find what was there and what is gone. Sadly, this corn and touch mill is gone. So there's a visual to just help them see what it looked like. Okay? Everybody happy so far? I'm just kind of showing kind of a little bit of how I get the students to use maps, to use visuals, to get them to have a sense of place and sense of how to find that out. And the second part is the people. Who was there? Who was there at the time? Here's the 1911 census for Ballinagara town. Again, I use John Grenham because John Grenham, it's quite easy to just go in and for the kids to follow, rather than sometimes we don't know how to spell it, or there might be people that would know who's living there, so it's an easier way to do it. Does everybody know why these two people don't have any letters other than their initials? They have a special job. They're not identified. Police. And here they are, RT from County Tipperary. Again, their police are going to be from different counties. And when I looked through Balnagar, I found a lot of pensioners. It's a nice place to retire. So some of the kids, their grandparents, those are the surnames that will be there. And again, it's to find out a little bit about them. And poor Margaret, she had a son, 18, son 17, Ursula 15, Victoria 14, Horace 12, Albert 11, Terence 9, Teresa 7, and thankfully after Mary Clara, she was finished. At least we think she was finished because it's only 1911, she's only 42, so you never know. There might be a surprise in a year or two and stuff. So finding out a little bit about the jobs that they had. Okay? The word scholar, they can identify with school and scholar and doing that. Reading and writing. And then Teresa and Mary Clara here, awful. At age 4, not able to read and write. It's a disgrace. And the kids is like, oh my God, you know, huh? They were still scholars, but obviously they had just finished, they had just started going to school. So it's a testament to a different time. And what I ask the kids as well is we go into that person's house, we find out a little bit about it, because we can do that. We can find out that the walls are made of stone. We can find out that there's a thatched house here and there. We find out how many rooms are in the house. And one of the things I ask the kids to do is to find out in their area who's the most crowded house. And they'll come up with, if you go here, there's 3 rooms here and 8 people. And then Mike O'Connor, he's got 13 rooms and 6 people, because that's a nice big house up on the hill. So he's part of the Connor dynasty. So all of these things to get them to visualize, and also that word empathy that was used earlier. What was their rooms like? And I asked the important question. In a 3-roomed house, what room do we have today that's not in a 3-roomed house?
Toilet.
And the toilets. And it's like, where do you go to the toilet? And of course, you all know the answer, and then they kind of like almost throw up. But anyways, it's kind of like, it's one of those neat things about looking at that and getting them to visualize and to place themselves into the lives of the people. And then to place those people into history, into the historical maps. Now that we know that they're the constables, we know where they were, because this is the 1890s map. And because we know where they were, we're able to walk down with the constable, who's the enumerator, and he's giving out the forms one by one and putting the numbers down. And we can start to maybe fill in where the Byrons were, maybe there. We can fill in where the Garrishes are, the Moorhens. I think there's a pub there called Moorhens. And so you're able to get the kids then to trace, to map. So we have a map originally of their own townland. Now we got a map of what it was like in 1911. And then we try and see what's still left. So here's the Constable Burger. There's a building there. It looks very much like it's of that era. The church has moved. So the building down here, that church now, as you notice, it's now a church rather than a chapel, because the church has been disestablished, the Anglican church. And so therefore, you've got the new Catholic church here that was built 52 years ago. So you have all of that going on, and for them to be able to visualize that. And then, those are names. What did they enjoy? What are stories they told? And that's where Duhas comes in. So to bring that in, one of the things I like to do is ask them to search for riddles. And I usually throw this riddle because I'm useless at riddles. So this one I can easily know. What part of a cow goes into a barn first? What part of a cow goes into a barn first? Oh, there's like, I better not say that.
Smell?
Sorry?
Smell?
Very good, very good. You're almost right, you're almost right.
Nose.
It's breaths. It's breaths. And they're like, oh God, you know, so like, go find me a better one. And of course, then the hunt in is like, oh, I've got this one, and then we find who's got the best riddle. There's stories, loads of stories. Here are the mills. So I can find out about the old parish, about storms, locusts. These are just a few that you filter off. And to find out something about the people then that told those stories. And it's written down. The names of the kids who wrote it there, and the person that they got it from, and how old they were. So this is 1936, 1938, and you've got these people going back 70 years into the 1850s and 1860s. So it's a wonderful resource. So completion, I asked them to do tops of the townlands and to do a heritage trail. What's really neat, not just about their townland, but 2 or 3 townlands on either side as well. So this is one student here. He's got a ring fort, he's got a sparrowhawk, he's got 2 burial grounds, he's got a quarry, but he's also got the fields, and he's got the old houses. He came in and said to me, I spent 2 hours doing your homework. And I was like, what did he do? Like, 2 hours. I was like, and then I was like, what homework? Kind of like this. I do it, instead. And he was like, when he saw it, I was like, oh my God, that is, for me, that was a really high point, just to see how much he had invested in finding out all of this stuff and then putting it down to share with others.
It'd be good if he could put his own story on top of that, to tie himself to his story.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Real sense of place.
Yeah. And the curves of the roads,
Yeah.
each one has a special resonance for him. So, that's me. Sorry for speaking so long. But who uses maps? Who uses Duhas? Who uses that? Any comments, any suggestions, any ideas, something?
Some of the schools, it was very frustrating. There was a school and only the principal's name was at the end of the story.
Yeah.
Have we any, or has anyone else come across it, have we any way of finding
What was sent up by the principal.
some, not
And that's-
necessarily any
that's-
child's name on it?
That's all there. Sometimes what the principal does is they wrote it out themselves to do that. What you have is what you have, unfortunately, and that.
The names of the teachers from the period would be in the roll books at the time. There'd be a register. There's a roll book for every year going back. Unfortunately now the roll book has gone online, which is going to be a disaster down the road to be there, but will it be the same? And you get the names of the teachers, I'd imagine, on the roll books at the time.
I think the point was the names of the teachers are on, but not the kids,
Around the
not the
jokers.
participants.
Yeah, a
Not
lot
the
of the stories will have the
participants,
child's name,
Yeah,
or
we
who
do that.
will also have the child's name and who told the child the
Yeah.
story.
And
Some of them only have the teacher.
I'd like to know
Yes.
just how you. I presume what you've given us now is a rough-in, is a very fast version of what you might give to the children.
I do
Via a
very-
slideshow?
Yeah, I do a
But do
very
you, so when,
short slideshow.
when you say you give them, are they sitting in groups looking at maps, or are they looking at them on the screen?
What I do at the start is I do a little short presentation, and then I get them diving in to the maps and doing
On
it for
physical
their own.
paper maps?
No, on their laptops
Screens.
on the screen. So each
Okay.
of them is going. I try to go to one spot first, because that way, if a kid says, "I don't know how to get there," I'm all one spot. And then once we know how to use the maps, then I tell them to go home.
And then my next follow-on was the outdoors.
Yeah.
How do you tie it in with do you do that within your time, or do you get them to do it when they go home?
When they go home, some of the kids would come back and report that they went exploring and they found, and that's the great thing, because a good few of the kids would be in rural areas, so they're going out into their farms
Have you
or
ever
going
done
down
the
that.
bring out?
Sorry?
Have you ever done the bring out?
Oh yeah,
Does it
and
work?
it works. What I've done in one particular school for local history, what we do is that we gather in the morning, I do a little bit, and then we go out on a trip. So one day it's the castles in the area, one day it's the big houses in the area, and one day it's the village up the road, which is a quiet road. And we have been able to map that village, and then we're able to explore that village or who was there. And then one of the older people in the village, he comes out and he has a chat with them. So I've told him, by the way, Sean, the kids are coming tomorrow. So he comes out and he has a chat with them. And what they get out of that, hopefully, will be something down the line. What they get out of it, at the time will be some there. But hopefully they get a sense of pride in their place and be able to find, the little nooks and crannies. The nice thing is a kid comes back and says, I found a ring fort. It was 3 fields behind the house. We didn't know it was there. And sadly, some of those ring forts are gone. And that's the sad.
Where do you get the maps? Is there
The
some?
maps, all of that, they're all available online, and they're all available for free. So that's why, because the kids that. I was just with the other group. This is the Ordnance Survey. Okay, it's all free. So most of those ones here. So, for instance, I'm going to just. Who wants to throw me out the name of a place, and hopefully I know where it is?
Go here.
Huh? Go here, Portlaoise.
Go to
Okay, so
How far
here's
have you gone?
Portlaoise.
Cullen.
Okay, go ahead, Vincent. This is what I'm
I'll
doing in
tell them
class
if
as
you're
well. Throw up somebody there.
There's a ring fort there. Can you see any from that distance? Any?
We will see it
Oh,
now,
very
Vincent. Because now that you pointed it out,
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
okay. So there, this is a great thing because when you have some Vincent,
Yeah,
where's
I can see it there. Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That area.
Okay, now Vincent, let's go back in time. You ready? Time travel, Vincent. Put your pin over the ring fort. Because what we do is we just go back. Now, say it's not available at this scale. Don't panic, folks.
Oh.
Vincent.
Yeah.
Now, the nice thing, Vincent, see those houses there? Can you put your pen on the houses just down here?
Yeah.
So let's find out, are they still there? And that's the neat thing about it.
Well, I can tell you.
You can tell. And there's where those houses are. What's there, Vincent?
I have. This morning there was sheep in that field.
That's really bad. He's trying to pull the wool over our eyes here. Come on now. Can do better, please come in.
This is the neighbours, and they're out here. I swear to God.
Good fences, good neighbours make.
Anyway, this area here is kind of a biodiversity area. We're actually
Yeah, reps.
doing a bit of work on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a well here.
Yeah.
Now that well should be on the map as well. So if we just go back, now the thing is, it's not, is that it there?
Yeah.
So there's the well. Now this is the 1830 first edition. Now the 25-inch map is much more detailed. Notice I'm going to just look at those field systems for a second.
Wow.
and see that
Not much has changed up there.
yeah. Those field systems have changed radically in that particular segment. But see that line there?
Oh,
That's still there. See the black line?
This has changed.
Yeah,
This side hasn't,
that side,
I'd
yeah.
say.
On the other side, yeah.
Yeah, this is the neighbours.
And then this is the 25-inch map. And again, so this now is the 1890s. Very marshy ground.
Yeah.
And we just go back over to this.
Well, just look at that now. Let's see what.
So there's the ring fort there. And again, you could spend ages. My advice to the kids is leave this open at home with their homework. Walk away and just ask their parents to have a quick look, see if they're doing it okay, and come back 3 hours later with a cup of tea for their parents. Because it can get really gross. Vincent, thank you very much. Okay. Guys, I hope that was somehow helpful in some way. Walking around, obviously, if I was doing this townland, I couldn't walk around that townland. It's kind of like you'd have to get a bus. But there are other townlands closer to the schools that sometimes you can take a walk down. One school I was in the other part of Roscommon, closer on the Mayo side, it's got a wonderful ancient church, ancient graveyard. And as you go down, you stop and you say, have that shape in front of you, look at the hedge. How many plants can you identify? Then turn to the other side of the road, which is all concrete and stuff. How many plants can you identify? And just the idea of biodiversity as against what we put down and how we can help out with pollination paths out there. But all of those things, very simple to do. I am not the best. When I would have failed that exam. I was like, Robin, okay, now it gets harder. But I can get them to see there's different plants there and ferns and all of that. I'm pretty okay, ferns is a bigger thing than grass. But it's history, that's my passion. But my passion is preserving, but for them to acknowledge the wonderful part that they are living in. And everyone has a great part to live in. So, Gary Mila Mahagid, thank you very much.